All right, we are starting with day 3 of our Women's Wellness series, and today we're going to talk about mobility and strength. So, a little recap week 1, we talked about the many hats that women wear and all the challenges that come with balancing those hats and how we can take them off, how we can take off our mom, our wife, our sister, our job hat, all the hats that we wear. We can take them off and we can learn to give ourselves time and space because making yourself first doesn't leave anybody out. It just allows you time to rest and reset so that when you go to make other people first in your life, that you can give them your full awareness, your full attention, and your full best self. And then in week 2, we did some breathing work to recognize that we can establish breathing as a way of calming our nervous system, of allowing ourselves to rest and reset for various chunks of time throughout our day. Especially if you're dealing with any kind of high stress situation, you can always come to your breath. You can always come to that meditative mindset and just take a time out. And that's going to allow you time to respond better and more fully and be present with whoever you're dealing with, family, friends, community, work, all the above. Better breathing is also good for your actual anatomy. It's good for your pelvic floor. It's good for your posture. It's good for a lot of reasons. So week 2 was really a delight to talk about. And then week 3 is moving into more of the physical realm. So we talked in the first 2 weeks a little bit more on the mental side, and now we're talking about strength and mobility in our body. But that also means strength and mobility mentally as well, because you are asked as women to be strong a lot. And as women, you're also asked to have flexibility and just juggle all the things and do the daily life dance, where the tune's always changing. So we're going to talk about mobility and strength, yes, for our mental minded fatigue of being women, but then also physically, because if we can physically add some of that strength and mobility into our body, it's going to make us feel more resilient in our minds. So when we move about the world, we're going to say, okay, if I can do this physically, I can do this mentally as well. And then you can lean on the mental or the physical side when you need to, and just know that the other pairing is there as well. Okay, so we're going to start with a little bit of a chat and then a meditation. So as I mentioned, for week 1, it's for week 3, or day 3, if you want to call it that. Women are often asked to be strong and flexible in a variety of ways. So they're asked to be strong when their kids are sick, or their family members are sick. They're asked to pick up pieces that are left behind. They are asked to be resilient and keep doing all their normal tasks, job and life and family, on top of any added pressure or stress that might be in the moment. And when I say asked, it's not an actual question usually. It's just how we frame the world, that we are expected to be everything for everyone all the time. There's a really great podcast, the Chiro Mom podcast, that explains that you can't be everything to everyone all the time. You can do a lot, but you can't do it all, and that is okay. And we need to stop believing and thinking that we have to. So, yes, we need to be strong in general. We need to be resilient in general, but we shouldn't be asked to be extra strong and resilient because we're women, or just that belief that just kind of sits within us, that seeps in bit by bit from society. And then for the flexibility part, we're constantly juggling things, you know. All of a sudden the day goes upside down because now we have this added or that changed, this flip flop, the boss needs that, the kid needs this, the family, etc. Can you pick up that at the store? Or there's so many tasks that we're asked to do. And even in my household, where there's a lot more equality between the chores and the tasks, I still feel an obligation to do a lot of what is deemed as women's work because it seeps in from society. It seeps in from how I was raised in my own household. Even though my husband and I work hard to say, this needs to get done. It doesn't matter who gets it done. It just needs to get done. These dishes need to get done. Somebody needs to do them. The trash needs to be taken out. Somebody needs to do it. Um, it's still present. It's still there. So I want you to think of all the ways that you are strong and that you are flexible because simply being born woman and being gendered woman. Think of all of the ways that the world has less forgiveness. Like you should be able to handle, if you wanted a career, you should be able to handle the career and the family and the kids and the husband and the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever lifestyle you've chosen and you pile those things on the plate, you should be able to handle that strength wise. And you need to be flexible when things go wrong and you need to bend and not break. Um, we're asked to do a lot. And that's tough because we literally shouldn't ask any individual to do all the things. Everyone needs to share. And at some point, it got a little too leaning towards the women do the all, where we used to share a lot more of the chores and a lot more of the tasks. And we're growing. We're growing as a society. Even now, we're getting back to that men can nurture and they can be stay-at-home parents. Um, when you have same-sex couples, well, how do you decide between two women who does what? It doesn't matter. It needs to get done, right? How do you decide between two men? Doesn't matter. It needs to get done. The things need to get done. So, however you have decided that your household will work and will function, just try to remind yourself that whatever needs to get done can get done by somebody. It doesn't have to be you every single time. Ask for help, ask for support, lean out on other people, other women, your partners, your children. You don't have to do it all. And that, in essence, can be part of the flexibility. You once were like, no, no, I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I'll cook the dinner. I'll clean the house. Da, da, da. You can learn to be flexible now and say, I don't need to do all this. And I can ask for support and help to do it too. Okay, so that's just a little PSA on the flexibility and strength, the mental flexibility and strength that women are often asked to do. So we're going to sit with our breath for a couple of minutes and we'll do a little mindful meditation on it. So find a cozy position that you can be in, whether it's seated or lying down or any other position. And take a couple of breaths, just natural inhales and exhales out your nose. And if you're not quite there yet with the breath, where it still is coming in and out of your mouth, then see if you can slow down the breath so that it feels more accessible through the nose. And that might mean that you take a couple of inhales and exhales out the nose and then take one or two with the mouth. Ultimately, we are working to be able to use just our nose. I'm gonna lean in a little bit on our second week activities where we learn to breathe into the whole torso, the whole chest. So if it helps you to place your palms somewhere, especially somewhere you recognize that you weren't moving in, maybe it's low ribs or maybe it's back. But find a way to tap into those spots that weren't moving as efficiently. And when you take your little subtle inhales, imagine that your lungs are blowing up like 3D balloons, so that our ribs on the sides, on the backs can all expand and reach and grow. Now, if you're lying down on your back, it might feel a little bit more challenging to add air through the back body, but envision it going there, envision it spreading. And then just sit for a moment or two here with your own breathing. Start to recall a memory where you felt a little challenged, maybe you felt a little weary because there was a lot on your plate that time. And it doesn't have to necessarily be something earth earth moving for you. It could be, well, yesterday. It could be just a day-to-day moment where you felt like you were being asked to do a lot. You had that sense of obligation to do all. That moment where the plate not only had what you put on it, but what others put on. And the weight of that plate just got heavier and heavier because what was being asked of you. It could be a very specific pinpoint in time. It could be whatever example just rambles into your brain's main stage. Now envision all the items that are on your plate. The one that got added to, the one that is growing in weight, size. It's out of proportion for what you're able to give energy wise. And what could you have maybe done in that instance? Could you have handed something off to someone? Could you have said, I know that you need this from me, and I know that I regularly give it to you, but can you do it on your own or ask someone else? Could you have handed off something on your plate? Could you have simply just said, no? I know that I'm regularly able to do this for you or participate or show up, but I have to say no today, this week, this month. Could you have said no to something in that instance? Could you have put aside or asked somebody to do work or said no to quite a few things on your plate? Consider who you could have reached out to. Is the support of a loved one? Maybe it's a neighbor or a dear friend, especially in this time of virtual world. Could you have reached out to somebody that's not even in your state? Someone you knew would answer the call of help? Who could you have leaned on in that moment? You probably came up with several people, not just one. Does your plate feel a little lighter now? Now that you've said no, now that you've shifted the responsibility to someone else, would your plate have felt lighter in that moment? That moment where you felt obligated to be strong enough to hold that plate high. And as you pivoted that moment, as you shifted whatever was on your agenda so that you could focus on what now should be prioritized, do you allow yourself the grace to set aside those other tasks, those other journeys? the to-dos. Could you have said, it's acceptable in this moment that I'm not able to show up fully for that person or that task? I had to ask somebody else to take it over. I had to say no. Can you give yourself permission? Can you be flexible enough to say, it's fine if I ask for help and support? I'm not less than. I'm a human and I don't have to be this strong. I don't have to be this flexible constantly. And if you truly believe that doing those things would have made that moment less challenging, less weary on your bones and body and mind, and think about what you'll do next time when you get tossed the lemons of life, when your plate gets heavy. What can you take off? This is a form of self-care, a form of preservation. The thinner you get, the less you're able to serve fully and more full-heartedly. So next time, who can you lean on? What can you say no to? What can you delegate or ask someone to help you with? Without judgment, without chastising. And sit with those people in this moment of meditation. Sit with them and know that they will be there for you when the time comes, as you will be there with them when the time comes. We can't do it alone. We're all connected. Let's sit for just a few moments longer with breath. Just before we close our meditation and move on, send a loving thank you out into the ether for those that have been there for you in the past, that have taken things off of your plate, that graciously accepted your no's and then showed up to help. And when you're ready, you can slowly blink your eyes open or gaze upward. Come back to your breath, come back to your body. And then pairing with our physical, or pairing with our mental theme of flexibility and strength, we're going to add in some physical flexibility and strength. So when I say flexibility, I don't mean can you do the splits. Flexibility is more related to mobility in the sense that each joint of your body has a range of motion. And you want to keep that range of motion as you age and as you grow into different stages of your life. So just like learning a language, to keep it, you have to practice it. So we're going to work on some mobility movements for the bigger parts of our body. So we're going to start with our neck. We'll start gently. You can shift your position if you're lying down, if you're seated, if you want to stand, if you want to, just as long as you're able to move your neck freely. So we want to be able to turn our neck mostly left and right about 80 degrees-ish. That's almost chin towards shoulder. If you could put your chin over your shoulder, that's about 90 degrees. If you remember from geometry, if we had a protractor and the line went across our shoulders, left to right, you should be able to turn your head so that you can almost put your chin over your left and right shoulder without moving them. And if you find that you can't quite get it there, then simply practicing this daily will eventually allow you to. There's other activities and tasks that you can do, but simply asking your body to move into ranges will eventually let your nervous system allow it. Your muscles will allow it. This is, of course, exception for if you have a fused disc in your neck and you literally physically cannot. I'm talking in not absolutes, but generalities, of course. All right, so you should be able to nod your chin towards your chest and then send your chin up towards the ceiling. You can even act as if you're pointing your chin. So you're pointing your chin more down, more than tucking it in to your chest, you're pointing it down. And then you're pointing your chin up. If you actually jut your chin, you might get a little extra stretch for some of these muscles here in the front of your neck. If you spend a lot of time with your head down, then you might have shortened muscles here in the front of the neck. And just giving a jutting of the chin forward. It's hard to do in talk. Gives a little bit of an extra stretch. All right, side to side ear. Little tick-tock. And you should be able to work your ear close to the shoulder, not necessarily lying down on the shoulder. That would be a magic trick. And if you need a little extra stretch, then you can imagine that your ear is trying to lift and reach like your arm would reach towards the corner of the room. And allow your shoulder to remain soft or even pull the shoulder down towards the floor. These are the basic moves of the neck. You should also be able to circle it round in both directions, like you're drawing a circle with your nose. Again, this is generalities. If you have any fused discs or surgeries, those kinds of things, they can limit mobility permanently. But whatever mobility you do have left over after something like that, try to keep it. Move around as much as you can. Look towards corners of rooms or floor, places that you don't normally look. All right, so that's neck. We're gonna do shoulders next. So this is a little bit easier if you're standing. It just offers you more room. You can do it seated, but. So for shoulders, I'll model front and side. I like to kind of shake it out for a moment and then just kind of let it go for a sec so that you get a little bit of looseness. And then you're gonna take your right palm and you're gonna let it face back behind you as if you're gonna high five the wall behind you. And then you're gonna sweep across the front of your body. Your palm is still facing back behind you. When you get to reaching about across your body like a T, then you can reach up and start rotating your shoulders so that you high five somebody. And then as you bring your circle around back towards the T, now your arms reach out to your side, your palm is facing forward. And now you're gonna rotate the shoulder again so that your palm starts to face back towards that wall behind you and then reaches back behind you, like you wanna put your hand into your pocket. And then you're gonna come back the opposite direction. So palm faces behind you. It starts to rotate as you reach the arm up towards the ceiling, like a high five. And then as you come back around, your arm is now crossing your body. You start to rotate the shoulder again so that the palm eventually lands facing behind you again. I'll show you from the side. This is if you have like a doorway and then you can move the arm in the actual doorway and your back is against the wall, then you can really notice how much your shoulders are moving, how much your body is moving. So our job is to move nothing but the shoulder, nothing but the shoulder joint to the fingertips. Everything else we're going to try to keep still. So palm faces back behind you. You go across the body, trying not to twist. We're reaching up towards the ceiling. We're trying not to move our ribs. We're going to high five. And then we're reaching out away to a T. We're starting to rotate our shoulders so that we high five the wall behind us. And then we're going to come back around. So our T, palm might start to face down towards the floor as you bring it around. Reach it up, high five. Across the body. Palm comes back down to face behind you. All right, let's try that on the second side. I recommend like 3 or 5 of those a day on each side. Take your time. The faster you go, the more you're going to start to wiggle and move. So the side will probably go a little faster because you can kind of remember what we're doing with our palms. So palm faces back behind you. It goes across the body. Again, we're trying not to twist. We're just reaching across. Our palm starts to rotate. Our shoulder starts to rotate so that we can give a high five. We're trying not to lift the ribs or move them at all. We're coming our arm out to a T. Palm starts to rotate down towards the floor, then back behind us. And then we're gonna come back around. So the T, up to the high five, across the body, try not to twist, and then back down. We'll do one more for this side. And as you're moving, try to keep everything else still except for that upper arm bone rotating in that shoulder socket. And if you have any trouble along the way, especially reaching behind you or high-fiving straight overhead, those are areas to work on. We start losing our mobility in reaching back behind us, and then all of a sudden we have to add twisting. We have mobility loss in reaching up overhead, so then we start using other parts of our body. We got to get a stepping stool. Well, I already have a stepping stool because I'm a very short person, but still, we want to keep this mobility. And it's not, if you notice when I reach up, it's not directly overhead. I can't even actually do that physically for my body. So yeah, at some point you do need to add some height, but you want to keep as much of this mobility reaching straight up as you can, straight back, out to the side, across the body, okay? That's going to keep the rest of it healthy. All right, spine. Spine's a good one. It's fun. I want you to remember a zippering action. So when you zipper up, one little piece of the zipper at a time kind of sinks together and then it unfolds when you unzip it, right? So just like that, imagine your spine. So each part's going to move one at a time and then we're going to go back down. So it's like an up and down of a zipper. Same thing with our spine. And you can do this seated, you can do this standing. I'll do it a couple different ways so you can see. So first we're going to start with the pelvis. So I want you to untuck the tailbone and then allow the belly to kind of fall forward so you get a little bit more of a rounding in that low back. And then your low ribs are going to jut forward and your chest. And then your head comes a little bit back behind you. So we're in bow leg shape or a C shape, crescent shape. And then unwind the way you came in. So tuck the chin a little bit. Let the chest draw back, the ribs start to come down. Low back starts to straighten, and then we tuck the tailbone. You notice my knees have to kind of shift a little. That's just to create balance for me in a standing position. So tuck the tailbone, swoop the belly button back behind you, round through the ribs and the upper chest, allow the shoulders to come down, and then the head. And we're just gonna zipper up and down like that. If you're seated, you can say standing if you're standing. If you're seated, same, so you're rounded. And then to unwind, untuck the tailbone, let the tailbone tilt, the whole pelvis tilts, belly comes forward, chest reaches forward, chin, and then zipper back down. So chin, chest, back ribs, low back, and then untuck the tailbone. And if you're doing it lying down, you may or may not have a greater challenge. You might have more feedback because the floor is supporting you as you zipper up and down the spine. If you have trouble along the way, if you're like, wow, I cannot seem to move my low back in these little segments, or wow, I'm really having a tough time shifting my pelvis forward and back, untucking my tailbone and retucking it. So if that's you, if you have these little troubled areas, then spend some time at those spots daily, right? Get a little tuned in. You can even touch that part with a finger to kind of recognize, okay, I'm working on that part. I'm trying to make it move one piece at a time. All right, and then let that go. So you can always zipper up and down the spine any time of your day, right? Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit for hips, a little bit for some ankles, okay? So hips, you can do this either in a lying down your side position, a tabletop position, or a standing position. That's what's awesome about these. So really it's about your ability to hold a position. So if you try it standing, it's gonna be more challenging to keep everything else still while you're isolating your leg because you're adding balance in, even if you're holding onto a wall. So I'm gonna model it in a hands and knees position, but you can always do it on your side as well. These are totally doable on your side. Okay, same motion. So if you're on your palms and that doesn't feel awesome for you, you can even elevate your palms by adding something underneath. So just brings a little bit of weight from being forward back towards your knees. You can cushion your knees with different things. If you're lying on your side, you could have a pillow underneath your head. Okay, our job is to try to keep everything else still while we move our hips. So we're gonna start with weight into our right knee, or if you're lying on your right side and your left leg is gonna be moving. So feel light on that left leg so that the rest of your body can take the balance, can take the tension after losing that support leg. It's kind of like losing a leg of your table, right? Okay, so keep your table steady as you bring your knee towards your chest. And then you're gonna take your knee out towards the side, imagining there's a hydrant. And you're going to try to keep your left and your right hips even. So there's no lifting of that left hip. Imagine that you have a tabletop left to right hip. So it's not gonna be a very big movement out to your side for that hydrant. And then you're gonna kick up towards the ceiling with your foot. Try not to let a bow come into that low back. And then reverse. So come out to your hydrant, knee to chest, and then back. So hydrant, kick up towards the ceiling. Gotta squeeze a little through the glutes to make it happen, the hamstrings. And then come back around. We'll switch sides. We'll take a moment. So if you're on your hands and your knees, then you might want to sit back. You might want to shake or roll or let go of that for a minute before we switch to the second side. And if you're on your right side so that you can let your left leg roll around, then you're going to switch to your left side and then let your right leg roll around. Okay, so I'm going to switch sides here so you can see my second side. So come to your hands and knees again, or you're on your left side, and you're going to shift the weight if you're in tabletop so that you can release weight from your right leg and knee. It's all on your left. You're still a strong tabletop. You're still nice and flat through the back body from tailbone to top of head. You're going to bring the knee towards the chest. Nothing else moves. You're not rounding the spine. You're gonna bring your leg out to the side like there's a hydrant. Your right hip does not elevate. And then you're gonna kick up towards the ceiling, trying not to create a bow in that back. And then you're gonna reverse it. So find your hydrant, knee to chest. I'm telling you, the slower you go, the easier it is to control each motion. Find your hydrant, kick up towards the ceiling. And then we'll come back around one more time. All right. That mobility exercise also included a little bit of strength too. You can do this standing, as I mentioned. It's a little bit more tricky. It's an extra challenge. I forgot to mention, you can also actually do this on a chair. You just have to allow one of your hips to kind of come off the chair and then use your other hand to kind of support. But your hydrant's not the floor, like the angle's obviously a little bit different. So, but if that's where you're at for mobility, that's where you need to start, is with the chair. Then you start with the chair, right? So there's ways to modify it to make it work for you. Even just rolling into your hip wildly is going to keep some of that mobility and strength for your hip. Okay, ankles, you can simply shift your weight and roll around in it if you're standing. If you're seated in a chair, you can do the same activity. Your knees are just going to be bent and you're going to be rolling with the floor. You can also do this if you're seated and you just allow some free movement. If you want to challenge the balance, you can actually come off the foot while you're standing. And you're just rolling around. Maybe you add some wrists too. And this is a lot of what I do in small pieces for my general yoga classes, because I want to make sure that people get the big warm-ups of all the joints before we head into weighting them and strengthening them. So that's mobility. If you had any trouble along the way, you can look up videos for particular body parts, or you can ask me and I can support you to get a little bit more mobile in the place that you find less mobility. All right, so for strength, since we already warmed up quite a bit of the hips and the feet and the ankles and all the bits, we're gonna do a couple of lunges and squats. So come to standing, and if you need a chair for support at your side or the wall even, that's an awesome way to keep your balance. And we're gonna simply just step forward and lunge into it, step back. And if you wanna do a couple on one side first, just to kind of get into the balance mode, and then you might count out like, oh, I'm gonna do 3 on this first side, and then I'm gonna do 3 on the next side. You can stay with one side if you want. It's gonna add a little bit of fatigue, challenge. And the best part about this is whether you're hanging onto a wall or to a chair for extra support is you can decide how far forward you step. How low do you want to dip? And then after you do a similar amount on one side, you can switch again. And the cool thing about these lunges is that you can also do them in different directions too. So when you're walking about life, going up and down stairs, sure, you're in a very vertical, horizontal plane here, forward, back, forward, back. But when you're in life, you might need to sidestep. You might need to cross step. So it might be fun to toy with instead of just going straight forward and back. Take a minute to just step to the side. Again, it doesn't matter how far to the left or right you step. And then you can switch if you haven't already. And choose some different planes to work in. Choose side step or front. It doesn't matter how many you do, you can always build up to more later. You can always build up to bigger steps forward. You can always build up to going deeper into your lunge. But the idea is that you do a little bit more every time. So after you finish a series where you're like, oh, okay, I'm a little fatigued, that was good. The next time you do it, try to do a little bit more. The next time after that, try to do more. The next time after that, try to do more until you eventually build your way up, progressively strengthening and loading. All right, let's take a couple of wide squats here. So start with a foot position that feels comfortable. Doesn't have to be super wide or super narrow. Everybody's idea of a balanced squat is different. So just put your feet where they go and take a couple of squats. And again, you decide, do I want to take a long time to come up and a long time to come down? Do I want to squat pretty darn low? Do I want to stay high? These are all choices that you can make daily. So when it's your strength leg day, you decide how hard you go. Because we all know that when we have a lot going on in our lives emotionally or physically, that just because it's leg day, you can still get your leg day in, but you don't have to go hardcore leg day, right? Just do a baby leg day. You can even shift that leg day, especially around like periods or menopause, hormonal cycles where you're just like, oh, leg day fell on a draining day, or my workout in general fell on a draining day. Then pause, do something else instead, take a walk, or decide that you're gonna instead not do it that day and do it the next day, or do less, do shorter of a workout or routine. That's part of the flexibility, even when you're strength training. Okay, so shake that out. And then you can add a block to this, or you can, if you don't have a block, that's totally fine. And we're gonna come to a warrior-like position. And you don't have to have a really long warrior with a big bent knee. Actually, when I do these, I like my feet to be a little bit more narrow because it feels like a stronger base. And you decide if you want to crush the block, if you want to squeeze and pinch it for some grip strength, if it's close to your body, less challenging, further away, high up, even more challenging. So I'm going to start with my block just close to my body as I tick-tock forward and back. And if you notice, my legs aren't really moving much. It's just my torso that's tipping. If you want to add some leg, so if you lean in, you can lean further into that bent knee and bend it further. But you can also just stay with the hips being still, the legs being still. And if you want to move your block to a different place, reaching it somewhere else, it's going to add a challenge, but maybe do one or two. This is good for mobility to the shoulders. It can strengthen the shoulders because you're squeezing the block a little bit. I mean, you can be squeezing it a lot, or you can just be holding on to it. You're still having to do some work, right? All right, we're going to come back to our center. We're going to let go. We're going to shake that off. Second side. So you're going to come to warrior for your second side, finding a cozy position here for your hips. Might look a little different than your first side. And then again, I'm going to start with my block close to my body. And I'm going to isolate my upper torso. So this is a hinge coming from my spine, flexing to the side. And my hips are being still. And then if I want, I might add the block a little further away. I might bend deeper into that front knee, add more flexion to the spine, maybe reach overhead once or twice. Your pace too. You don't have to be going my pace. If you're doing this video with somebody else, you don't have to be doing it with their pace. You can do this in a chair too. I know we're standing, but if you want to add mobility for the shoulders and it's not leg day, then you can do this seated and just do the arm work. Do the spinal work. All right, come back up, let it go, shake it out. We're gonna do a little bit of core and twist. So this can be done standing where you hold on to the block and you twist into it. It can be done seated. If you're like, oh, I'm ready to sit down for a minute, it can be done seated and you can come into twist. I'm gonna say seated. That seems like a good place for me to be. And whatever pace you're at, slow it down a little so that you can really feel the spine articulating all on its own. And when you get to that end range where you twist off to one side and your body's like, I can't twist anymore. See if you can squeeze through the muscles to eke out just a little bit more of a twist before you unwind. You get to your second side, you twist in, and then see if you can eke out a little bit more of a twist. So we're using our muscles in the core and in the shoulders to twist this out instead of using our hands or a chair or wall to leverage deeper in. That's just so passive stretching is great, but since we're working on strength and mobility, and we're trying to move with our muscles through our core. All right, another great way to activate the core is to bring your block low, extend your arms out, and twist to your left and your right. And whatever side you're twisting to, you should be feeling some of these side muscles. Like if you had a jacket, a coat, and you had pockets, those are the muscles that you're working for. Especially when you get to that end range in your twist. Whew, starting to build a little heat. All right, bring it back to center, let it go. All right. Now, that's a little dabble into core and strength. That's a little dabble into mobility. That's a little dabble into segmenting your body into pieces and working in specific areas to keep it mobile, whatever mobility you have, and then expanding on that mobility. The best thing you can do for mobility is to try to strengthen at those end ranges. So if your end range is here with lifting your shoulder up, if you add just a little weight like a can of any food item and then try to lift into it, that eventually is going to build strength at that end range. It's a perfect example. And another thing to do is to passively stretch at the end, just to let your nervous system know that I can control this range, but I might be able to leverage my way into something deeper and it's still safe. Nothing falls off of me, right? Nothing got broken. So passive stretching is still awesome and good. So we're going to end with a little bit of that and we're going to end with a meditation as well, trying to wrap in all this idea of the mobility and strength physically and mentally. Okay, so drop your right ear towards your shoulder. Add your head as a little bit of leveraging weight to lengthen that left side of your neck. Soften into your breaths. And then use your hand as support to bring your head back to center a little. You'll switch to your second side. So now your opposite ear comes to your shoulder. You're going to add your hand as a little bit of leveraged weight. Pulling the neck a little bit deeper into the side stretch here. And then we help hand to head, center. Maybe you move the neck a little. Draw your right arm across your chest, your left arm gives it a hook, and you're gonna pull it across your body. So you feel a little bit of back body stretching across the shoulder. You're allowing a leverage to passively stretch here. And then you're gonna switch. If you have more time to work on one specific body part, like if it's shoulders you're working on in mobility, then try to hold some of these stretches for, I don't know, like 30 seconds or so. Just gives your nervous system a chance to recognize, okay, we're stretching. This is a safe spot to be in. And then we can let that go. To work our overhead flexibility, you can do this on the floor. You can do this on the wall. So if you can imagine that my floor is my wall, I'd be standing at it, right? Palms go to the wall. And then I walk my feet away from the wall so that I get sort of a down dog. But as I'm here on my hands and knees, I'm just shifting my bottom towards my heels. And try to see if you can wrap your shoulder back behind you. So if you envision your tricep, that's the back of your upper arm, instead of being pointed out to the side, it's going to wrap down towards the floor, and that allows your shoulder to rotate outward. And then grip a little at the mat. Breathe. See if you're borrowing some flexibility in the spine. If I let my ribs go, then I can, it looks like it appears as if I have more flexibility in my shoulders, but I don't. I borrowed it from my spine and my ribs. So tuck those ribs a little. Again, you can do this at the floor. You can do it a wall. A wall's a little bit more gentle, and it keeps you off of your knees as well. So that's a little bit for shoulder. You can also do a front chest stretch. So you just bring yourself, palm goes to the wall, and you sort of walk away from the wall. And you can either put the palm flat on the wall, you can dig your fingertips into the wall. And that's to open this front body here, the front of the chest. Make sure you get your both sides in there. And then we'll do a little bit of passivity for the hips. So if you had trouble going across your leg, then a figure 4 action will allow you to get a stretch into that outer hip. So if you feel like your outer hip is tight, this figure 4 will allow you to get a little extra stretch in there. You can even do this in a chair as well. You can do this seated. I like to rock a little with my leg. I'll switch it out. This one can be done at work too, the office, sitting at your desk at home. Maybe that is your office. Allowing your body to sink into a stretch, accepting the flexibility. Even though you can't hold that specific position, if I removed my lower leg, my foot pops out because I can't hold this position, right? I don't have the strength to own that, but I can hold this one. So accept that you need a little help and a little leverage sometimes. If you need a little stretch for the back body of the legs, try to draw your belly down towards your thighs rather than just dipping your head in. You can set your heel on a couch or a table and do this if you want to do it standing. You can do this if you're standing, you can do a forward fold down towards the floor. There's so many planes that you can work in. Sometimes the floor is the best plane to create ease. Sometimes going to a wall is the best place to create ease. Sometimes sitting in a chair. All right, we're going to come up out of our final leveraged stretches here. And we're going to come to our seat once more. So chair or floor. And we did a lot of work today. We did a great deal of work today. We did some awesome work. I hope that you can find a way to give yourself grace, to accept help and support, to say no. You don't have to do it all. No one should be expected to. Even though the weight might still feel there, the obligation might still be there, the idea to do all must still reside within us. It's who are we without it? It takes time to let those deep-seated roots get pulled up. So as we come to our final moments together, find a comfortable position to be in so we can return back to our breath. Closing the eyes, melting down into our position, allowing the softening to take over. Is there one thing that you can hand off to someone right now? Maybe a bunch of things just pop into your mind. I could hand this off to lighten my load. I could give this away to someone else. I don't have to do this. The job will still get done, albeit differently, by someone else. Think of what freeing up that time and energy spent could mean for you. Where could you put that time and energy? Could you just simply be more present and able at the things you're already doing? What could you say no to right now? Not no forever, maybe just no for right now. What could you say no to that would free up a moment to allow you to do something for yourself, to save your energy for something or someone that you want to give it to? It takes strength to say no. It takes flexibility to ask for support. So sit for a few quiet moments with the handoff, the no, the people you can ask for support. Sit with that sense of lightness for a few cycles of breath. As you walk about your time in the next week or days, practice saying no. Practice saying, can you take this? Or will you share this load with me? I hope that this practice left you feeling a little bit stronger, a little bit more mobile, flexible, and able to curate a better flow of your energy, how you output it into the world. Thank you for joining me today. And when you're ready, you'll open your eyes and you'll go about whatever you're off to.